Hany completes 1 year in prison on absurd charges. During this time, like others who have been arrested on related charges, he has had to suffer isolation from family and friends, medical complications, cessation of the teaching and research that is vital spiritual nourishment for an academic. Professor M.T. Hany Babu of Delhi University's English department, who was formerly my colleague at the English and Foreign Languages University, is an accomplished linguist whose work ranges from the highly specialized fields of syntax and semantics to the more socially oriented concerns with language politics and policy, linguistic identity and marginalization, etc. Beyond this, personal interest and social concern has led him to explore related issues in the field of education, where he has not only engaged with the always burning question in India of the medium of instruction in Indian education institutions, but also related questions of social justice when it comes to the basic issues such as access to education. I'm quite certain that Hany Babu has not been targeted for his writings on syntax and semantics. We are living under a vindictive, vigilantist, and intolerant government which sidesteps the law and targets individuals who are critical of the things that it holds dear and subjects them to the certain punishment without trial of the incarceration for indefinite periods of time. The regime is ever on the lookout for those who might, by paying attention to what needs improvement in the democratic order of the Republic, appear to be working against the immediate goals of its ideological mission. Dr. Babu's critical essay, Breaking the Chaturvarna System of Languages, to give an example, calling for an overhaul of Indian language policy, is the sort of intellectual effort that the regime wants to suppress. It does not matter to this regime that Dr. Babu is a scholar with a responsible, constructive approach to solving the problems of policy that are within the range of his intellectual abilities, someone who thoroughly examines the issues involved and proposes constitutionally sound ways in which to alter existing arrangements so as to enhance the democratic freedoms and rights of the people. He takes seriously the task of the intellectual in a republic to serve the interests of the sovereign, which is to say the people. Governments come and go, but the sovereign remains in place as long as the republic survives. And everything we do as intellectuals, we who are servants of the republic first, must aid the perpetuation of popular sovereignty. We are militants of the republic, mental workers in the prevalent division of mental and physical labor, whose task is to protect the republic against whatever is detrimental to its existence and forward movement. Governments whose task is to run the affairs of the state in the name of the sovereign have tried throughout history to disavow popular sovereignty's perpetual mandate and to insulate themselves from the aegis of the founding sovereign so as to pursue their goals with impunity. It is for this reason that intellectuals often find themselves in conflict with the state because they serve the sovereign, whereas the rulers want them to serve the government of the day. Whatever the charges for which Dr. Babu has been arrested and held without bail for a whole year, it's for being a conscientious and thinking servant of the Republic and not the government in power that he has been targeted along with so many others. Over these 3 evenings, by engaging in the intellectual pursuits that we as scholars consider our bounden duty, we will reassert our commitment to sustaining the distinction between serving the interests of the Republic through critique and constructive scholarship and the ideology, on the other hand, of the regime in power. The pursuit of knowledge cannot be subject to the whims and fancies of passing regimes and governments. Hany Babu is our friend and colleague, and we want him to be released immediately so that he can continue to practice, like the rest of us, the critical scholarship which enables the Republic to renew its commitment to a better future for all. In conclusion, I want to thank all of you, the paper presenters, those who have sent messages of solidarity, and those who are here to listen to the lectures for your participation. Let us raise our voices in support of Hany Babu and the intellectual vocation that has been denigrated by his arrest and continued incarceration. I would like to thank again everybody who has come together to set this up. There's a lot of work has been done by people to make this possible. And I now hand it over to Ayesha to say a few more words by in introducing Hany Babu.
Hello, everybody, and thank you,
Madhava. I can't hear anything. I can't hear anything. Sorry.
Yeah, but can everybody else hear me?
Yes, we can. I can hear you.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry about this.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Thank you. I can hear you now.
Oh, great. Okay. So I would like to just take 5 minutes of your time to reflect a little bit on why linguistics is crucial in the exercise that we are in both Babu's intellectual predilections and interests, and why the kind of linguist activists that use Hany Babu, the best of us all, that somebody like Hany Babu represents, how that comes to be. I think it's because the study of language itself is Janet's faith. Because the object of this inquiry is to be both found in the world outside, and that's immediately palpable to most of us, in society, in politics, in the artifacts that we produce as text, argument, rhetoric, and art. But it's also there in the minds, in the genomes, and the cognition of the organisms that inhabit this outer world. One of the major achievements of intellectual inquiry, in particularly the 20th century, has indeed been to separate these two faces and to look upon them, to gaze upon them squarely and individually and independently, and without making any presumption that the species' uniform linguistic ability, in particular the properties of its formal nature, has any predictive power to control how language may come to be used crucially. But at the core of both streams, if you want the social linguistic phase and the inward-looking gaze, looking at the mind, the genome of the organism, is the fundamental Enlightenment assumption that all languages are equal, that each represents an invaluable window into both the human mind and the social organizations that humans do, make, and become. I would like to reflect on the fact that Hany Babu belongs to what we should be calling the second wave of linguists in post-colonial India. And as we know from bit of personal experience over the last few months, second waves are quite deadly. So where the first wave of modern Indian linguists in post-colonial India grappled with different linguistic approaches to the twin questions of language in the mind and outside, Babu's generation of linguists, and I'm proud to count myself as one of them, and there are many here in the audience who are of our generation, they are the people who have now begun to synthesize both the political and the social questions together, and as well as the intellectual one. So generally, I mean, all periodization is odious, as there are always exceptional individuals in every generation. But I think it is not unfair to say that while earlier generations of scholars in Indian languages chose to look at the formal properties or the descriptive properties of languages, so from both Chomskyan and non-Chomskyan perspectives, or they looked at language in its social, historical, and sometimes very rarely its political aspect. And all these intellectual endeavors are very useful. Babu's generation has been the first one not only to engage right across the whole spectrum intellectually, but also to ask what linguists must do in changing unjust and unequal situations. So if both universal grammar, which is what one version of the Chomsky intellectual enterprise, the inward mentalist looking one, if both UG and generally linguistics can be undoable without the fundamental assumption that each speech variety counts, whether society considers it a language or not. The condition.
Aisha, I'm sorry to interrupt, but there has been a little problem, and I think the meeting will end in like 1 minute. If we can request everyone to rejoin in like 5 to 10 minutes till we resolve the problem.
All right. Okay. Okay. So we're
Yeah.
sorry. We are really sorry about this, but there's some problem with the Zoom account. So we'll have to stop. We'll be back in 5, 10 minutes or so. 10 minutes?
Yes. Yeah.
I'm